Airplanes are considered one of the safest means of transportation ever created by humans. The main reason behind this safety is the massive amount of technology inside them. But of course, despite all that, accidents still happen, and the strangest of them are disappearances. The idea that a plane can vanish with all this advanced technology, radars, satellites, and monitoring stations is completely baffling. And it didn't happen just once or twice. Since the first recorded disappearance in 1948, up until today, 83 airplanes have vanished. Welcome everyone. But before we begin, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a Boeing 777, is the most famous plane disappearance in history. What made this tragic event so widely known is that it happened in the age of social media, where news spreads instantly. On top of that, it had the largest number of victims among disappearance cases, with 239 lives lost. What's even stranger is that the search efforts for this plane, or even just its wreckage, were the largest in history in terms of area covered and the number of teams involved. 20 countries joined forces and searched continuously for 3 years. But unfortunately, the result was nothing. The plane took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's capital, on March 8, 2014, heading to Beijing. But about 40 minutes after takeoff, a series of mysterious events began. First, communication with control towers was lost, and then the plane deviated from its planned route. Civil and military radars were able to track it for 7 full hours, but after that, it completely vanished. No wreckage, no hijacker demands, no radar signals, not even a satellite trace. A year and 3 months later, a piece of the right wing suspected to belong to the plane was found. From then until 2018, 33 pieces suspected to be from the plane were discovered. Malaysian authorities are almost certain it was Flight 370, but still, no international investigation body has officially confirmed it until today. Amelia Earhart was a famous American pilot with several records, like being the second person to fly across the Atlantic and the first woman to complete a solo trip around the United States. She also had many other achievements to her name. That's why one day she decided to become the first woman in history to fly around the entire world. On June 1, 1937, she began her planned trip with navigator Fred Noonan. The chosen aircraft was the twin-engine Lockheed 10E Electra. The plan was to start from Florida, pass through several countries, and then return to the United States. Over the course of a month, Amelia nearly completed the journey. On July 2, 1937, she reached the city of La in Papua New Guinea. The only stops left before returning to the starting point were Howland Island and then Texas. Howland Island is an uninhabited tropical island in the Pacific Ocean, located roughly halfway between Oceania, or Australia, and America. Up until that point, everything was fine. Amelia and Fred were receiving guidance from the ground station, but suddenly, without any distress call or report of problems, Amelia and her plane vanished forever without explanation. All search efforts failed. Until the disappearance of Flight 370, the most famous mystery was Flight 19, led by American officer Charles Taylor. The story begins on December 5, 1945, during the final months of World War II. The flight was a training mission for new pilots under the command of Charles Taylor, who had 2,500 hours of flight experience. From Fort Lauderdale Base in Florida, 5 bombers took off for training. The first part of the mission went smoothly, with the pilots successfully dropping their training bombs. By 3:45 p.m., the only step left was to return to base. But for unknown reasons, the ground station received a distress call from Taylor saying he couldn't determine the way and didn't know where land was. Even stranger, the 5 bombers didn't appear on the base radar. At first, the control tower thought the group was flying too low to be detected. They asked Taylor to adjust altitude so they could help, but at that point, the audio was cutting and unclear. Taylor's voice sounded panicked and frightened. Eventually, communication was lost and the 5 planes disappeared. Within minutes, 2 rescue planes were sent to the estimated location of Flight 19. But as time passed and fuel ran low, 1 rescue plane returned while the other also vanished. 6 planes disappeared with no explanation and without leaving behind a single trace. Search operations didn't stop, covering 500,000 square kilometers of the Atlantic Ocean for 5 straight days. But not even an oil slick or a life raft was found. The incident occurred over the region known as the Bermuda Triangle, and it was this event that triggered the Bermuda Triangle legend we all know today. From that point, conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Flight 19 remained one of the strangest disappearances until January 30, 1979. That day, Varig Flight 967, a Brazilian cargo flight, took off from Narita Airport in Japan heading to Los Angeles. The captain, Gilberto Araujo da Silva, was one of the most skilled pilots in the world. With over 23,000 flight hours at age 55, he was considered a national hero. Back in 1973, he had saved 123 passengers when a fire broke out on a flight from Rio de Janeiro to Paris, successfully landing the burning plane in a field near Paris. Despite his expertise, Flight 967 disappeared just 20 minutes after takeoff. On board were 43 people. Naval and Air Forces searched for 8 days but found no wreckage, no cargo, no bodies, nothing. A large cargo plane, flown by a top-class captain, vanishing after just 20 minutes of flight should have meant a limited search area. Yet there was no trace. The only theory for this mysterious disappearance is that it was hijacked by Soviet fighter jets. This claim comes from an incident 3 years earlier, when Soviet pilot Viktor Belenko defected to Japan with the Soviets' most advanced aircraft at the time, the MiG-25. It's said that after arriving, the plane was dismantled and later taken to the U.S., where Belenko requested political asylum. According to the theory, Flight 967 and Captain Gilberto were carrying the dismantled MiG-25 to the U.S., and the KGB intercepted and hijacked the entire plane. But of course, no evidence supports this claim. Flight 739, a Lockheed L-1049H Super Constellation, carried 107 people, 93 American soldiers, 3 South Vietnamese officers, and 11 crew members. The passengers were headed to South Vietnam to train its forces during the Vietnam War. At that time, the U.S. supported South Vietnam while the Soviet Union supported the North. This flight, later known as Tiger Line Flight 739, began at Travis Air Force Base in California, then was scheduled to stop for refueling at Hawaii, Wake Island, Guam, the Philippines, before finally reaching Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam. But in reality, Guam was the last location where contact with the plane was made. After that, it completely disappeared along with all 107 on board. This accident didn't get much attention because it happened in 1962 during the Cold War, when the world knew the Soviets were ahead of the Americans in missile and space projects. Meanwhile, the U.S. was ahead in aviation. So the idea of a plane disappearing with 107 people on board was strange. If the Soviets were behind it, that would mean they had surpassed America in aviation too. That's why this case became one of the most famous disappearances of all time. And that's it, we've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our new content. See you in the next video.